Rip Campbell let the roan pick its own pace across the valley floor. No point pushing the horse in this heat. The grass ran yellow-brown for 2 miles in every direction, flat enough that he could see the mountains holding up the sky to the west, and a line of cottonwoods marking a creek bed to the south. He'd been riding since first light, working his way down from the high country where he'd spent 3 weeks mending fence for a rancher who paid in silver dollars and did ask questions. The man had a daughter who smiled too much. Time to move on. The valley narrowed ahead where 2 ridges pinched together like the neck of a bottle. Rip shifted in the saddle, leather creaking. His shoulders felt tight. He rolled them back and caught movement on the northern ridge. Clouds, they stacked up dark and mean, building on themselves the way they did before all hell cut loose. He watched them pile higher, bruised purple at the bottom, white and boiling at the top. Lightning forked down somewhere behind the ridge. The roan's ears flicked back. "I see it," Rip said. He'd been caught in the open before. Once in New Mexico when the lightning walked around him in a circle for 20 minutes. Another time in Colorado when hail the size of walnuts beat his hat into a shapeless mess and left welts across his back. He still had that hat. It was wrapped in his bedroll. The wind came first, shoving across the valley floor, bending the grass flat. It smelled like rain and something else. Something electric that made the roan sidestep and toss its head. Rip gave the horse its head and it broke into a lope, angling toward the cottonwoods. He stood in the stirrups, squinting. There past the trees, maybe a mile out. Roofline could be a ranch, could be abandoned. Either way, it beat drowning in the middle of nowhere. Thunder rolled across the valley. Deep enough he felt it in his chest. The rain hit when he was still half a mile out. It came straight down, hard and cold, turning the dust to mud in seconds. Rip pulled his hat low and hunched his shoulders. Water poured off the brim. The roan's hooves splashed through puddles that hadn't existed 30 seconds before. He could barely see the buildings now. The rain made a gray wall between him and shelter. He aimed for where he'd last seen them and trusted the horse to keep its feet. The barn came up sudden on his left, leaning hard but still standing. The house squatted beyond it, dark windows like eye sockets in a skull. Rip swung down before the roan stopped moving and let it through the barn door. Inside, the rain hammered the roof like a drum chorus. Water dripped through gaps in the shingles. The roan shook itself, spraying water. Rip found a stall that looked solid and started stripping the saddle. Rip got the saddle off and rubbed the roan down with a handful of straw he found in the corner. The horse nickered and pushed its nose against his chest. "Yeah, I know. You earned your keep today." He left the roan in the stall and looked around. The barn had 3 walls standing straight and one that bowed out like a fat man's belly. Enough room for 2 horses, maybe 3 if you didn't mind them cozy. A workbench ran along the back wall, tools still hanging on pegs. Saw, hammer, something that might have been a draw knife before rust ate half of it. Wood? He needed wood. The bench had seen better days, but the legs looked solid. Rip tested one with his boot. It didn't budge. He grabbed the saw and went to work on the top plank. The teeth were dull, but they bit. Sawdust gathered in small piles at his feet. When he had 4 pieces that would fit in a fireplace, he tucked them under one arm and made for the house. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it came harder now, driven sideways by wind that threatened to take his hat. He covered the distance at a run, boots sinking in mud with each step. The porch sagged on one side. Rip tested the boards before putting his weight down. They held. The door hung open, bottom edge dragging through a half circle of bare wood where it had scraped 1,000 times. Inside smelled like mice and old paper. Gray light filtered through windows, thick with grime. A table stood in the center of the main room, one chair tucked under it. The fireplace took up most of the far wall, stones blackened with soot. Rip dropped the wood and went back for more. 3 trips and he had enough to last the night. Maybe into tomorrow if the storm stuck around. His shirt clung to his back, water running down his spine. He built the fire small, just enough to take the chill off. The chimney drew clean, that was something. Smoke went up instead of filling the room. He fed the flames 1 stick at a time until they caught proper. From his saddlebags he pulled out hardtack, dried beef, and a tin of peaches he'd been saving. The peaches went in his dented pot with some water from his canteen. He set the pot near the coals. While the food warmed, Rip spread his bedroll in front of the fireplace. His clothes would dry on him. They always did. He sat cross-legged on the bedroll and worked his boots off. Water poured out of the left one. Outside, the storm hammered the roof. Thunder came in waves. Lightning lit up the windows. Rip ate the peaches straight from the pot, letting the sweet juice cut through the dust in his throat. He was chewing the last piece when he heard boots on the porch. Heavy, unsteady, dragging. Rip set the pot down and reached for his gun belt hanging on the chair. He buckled it on, staying low, eyes on the door. The boots scraped again. Stopped. Something hit the wall shoulder maybe, or a hand grabbing for support. He moved to the side of the door, back against the wall where the hinges were. His Colt came out smooth and quiet. The firelight threw shadows that jumped and stretched across the floor. A grunt from outside, wet, painful. then a sound like a sack of grain hitting the porch boards. Rip waited. The fire popped. Rain drummed on the roof. He counted to 10, then 20. Nothing moved out there except the storm. He eased the door open with his boot, gun up. The porch was dark, except where firelight spilled through the doorway. A man lay face down 3 feet from the threshold, one arm stretched toward the door like he'd been reaching for it. His hat was gone. Rain pelted his back. Rip stepped out, checking the yard. Nothing but sheets of rain and darkness beyond the firelight's reach. He holstered the Colt and crouched beside the man. Blood mixed with rainwater, spreading in a thin pool under the man's left side. Rip grabbed him under the arms and dragged him inside. Not a big man, but dead weight felt heavier than living. He pulled him close to the fire and rolled him over. Young face, maybe 30, dark hair plastered to his skull. His eyes were closed, breathing shallow. A hole in his shirt showed just below the ribs on his left side. Entry wound. Rip lifted him enough to check no exit. The bullet was still in there. The man's gun belt was empty. No holster, no gun. His boots were good quality, hardly worn. The shirt had been white once. Rip grabbed his canteen and went back outside. A horse stood 20 feet from the porch, head down, reins dragging in the mud. It didn't spook when he approached. He gathered the reins and led it to the barn, moving fast through the rain. The horse was a bay gelding, well fed, good shoes. Rip stripped the saddle and bridle, put it in the stall next to the roan. The saddlebags were still attached to the saddle. Heavy he hefted them, feeling the weight shift inside. Back in the house, he dropped the saddlebags by the door and knelt beside the wounded man. He'd seen gunshots before. This one was lower, might have missed the vitals. Hard to say. He tore the shirt open. The wound wept blood, steady but not pumping. Rip pressed his bandana against it, and the man's eyes fluttered open. Blue eyes, unfocused. Easy, Rip said. Don't move. The man's lips worked, but nothing came out except a bubble of spit. His hand came up, fingers clutching at Rip's sleeve, then fell away. Rip kept pressure on the wound. He needed whiskey, clean cloth, needle and thread. He had none of those things. What he had was a pot still warm, from peaches and water that hadn't been boiled. The man's breathing changed, coming faster and shallower. Rip worked through the night, doing what he could. He boiled water in the pot, tore strips from his spare shirt, cleaned the wound as best he knew how. The man never woke again. His breathing got quieter as the hours passed, spaces between each breath stretching longer. Around dawn, the breathing stopped. Rip sat back on his heels and rubbed his face. The fire had burned down to coals. Rain still fell outside, but softer now, steady instead of violent. He checked the man's pockets. No wallet, no papers, a few coins, a folding knife with a bone handle. In the vest pocket, he found a silver watch with initials scratched on the back CH. The hands had stopped at 3:10. The saddlebags sat where he'd left them by the door. Rip opened the first one. Shirts, socks, a bar of soap wrapped in paper. The second one made him stop. Money banded in stacks. He pulled one out and thumbed through it. 20s and 50s, crisp, like they'd come straight from a bank. He counted 5 more stacks, the same size. Under the money, folded papers. He spread them on the floor near the window where the gray morning light came through. Wanted posters, 6 of them. Different faces, different names, rewards from $200 to $500. One showed a man with a scar running from his eye to his jaw. Vernon Cass, $500. Wanted for robbery and murder in Kansas and Colorado. At the bottom of the bag, a tin badge. Deputy, the name filed off, but he could still make out part of it in the right light. Henderson, or Hendricks maybe. Rip looked at the dead man by the fire. Deputy's badge, wanted posters, and more money than most men saw in 5 years. Either the law had gone bad or someone had robbed from robbers. He refolded the posters and put everything back in the saddlebags. The money too, though his hands wanted to linger on it. $8,000, near as he could figure. Enough to buy land, stock it with cattle, build something that lasted. The dead man stared at the ceiling with clouded eyes. Rip closed them with his thumb and forefinger. Outside, the rain had stopped. Birds started up in the cottonwoods. The roan whinnied from the barn, wanting feed and attention. He dragged the body outside and lifted it across the bay's saddle, tying it down with the man's own rope. The bay didn't like it, but settled when Rip talked to it. He transferred the saddlebags to his own saddle, buried them under his bedroll where they wouldn't show. Then he saddled the roan and pointed both horses east, toward whatever town lay that direction. The sun broke through the clouds as he rode out of the valley. The town came up at midday, strung along both sides of a rutted street that looked like it had been there before the buildings. Sentinel Bluff, according to a weathered sign leaning against a fence post at the edge of town. Rip counted 2 saloons, a general store, a bank, and a barbershop with a striped pole. The sheriff's office sat halfway down on the left, door open to catch whatever breeze might wander through. People stopped what they were doing to watch him ride past. A woman sweeping the boardwalk in front of the hotel. 2 men loading a wagon. A kid with a dog. Rip tied both horses to the rail outside the sheriff's office and went inside. A man sat behind a desk reading a newspaper, boots propped on a drawer he'd pulled out. He had gray in his beard and a star pinned to his vest. He looked up when Rip's shadow crossed the doorway. "Help you. Got a body outside. Found him last night at an old homestead about 10 miles west. He came crawling up on the porch during the storm. Died before sunrise." The sheriff swung his boots down and stood. He was taller than Rip expected, north of 6 feet. He walked outside and Rip followed. The sheriff pulled the blanket back from the dead man's face. He studied it for a long moment, then looked at Rip. "You shoot him." "No, he was already shot when he showed up. I tried to help, but the bullet was in too deep." Unhung, the sheriff walked around the horse, looking at the body from different angles. He say anything. Never got the chance. Passed out on the porch, woke up once inside but couldn't talk. Then he was gone. The sheriff pulled the shirt open and examined the wound. His fingers were quick and practiced. This happened yesterday. During the storm, maybe 6-7 hours before he died. Long time to ride with a hole in you. The sheriff covered the body again. "You know him?" "Never saw him before last night." "What's your name?" "Rip Campbell." The sheriff looked him over the way he'd looked at the body, taking inventory. "Where you headed?" Campbell was going south. "Figured I'd stop here first, let you know about this." "That's civic-minded of you." The sheriff didn't sound like he meant it as a compliment. "This man's probably a bandit by the look of him. Good boots, decent horse, but no identification. That's how they travel. Light and anonymous." A man came out of the general store across the street and started toward them. Heavyset, wearing a leather apron. "Blackwood," he called. "That a body?" "Go back to your business, Harmon." The man stopped but didn't leave. He stood on the boardwalk watching. The sheriff turned back to Rip. "I'm going to need you to stick around town for a few days. Got questions that might need answering." Rip watched the sheriff watch him. The street had gone quiet except for Harmon shifting his weight on the boardwalk across the way. "How long's a few days?" "Long as it takes." Blackwood hooked his thumbs in his gun belt. "You've got a problem with that?" "Just like to know where I stand." "You stand right here in Sentinel Bluff until I say different." The sheriff walked to the edge of the boardwalk and spat in the street. "Luther, get over here." A skinny kid came out of the barber shop, wiping his hands on a rag. He couldn't have been more than 16. "Take this horse and body down to Prentice at the Undertaker. Tell him I'll be by later." Luther took the bay's reins and led it away. The dead man's boots dragged in the dirt, leaving 2 lines in the dust. Blackwood turned back to Rip. "Where'd you say you were before the homestead?" "High country. Working fence for a rancher named of Gilchrist." "How long?" 3 weeks. "He'll vouch for you." "Expect so." The sheriff pulled a pad and pencil from his vest pocket and wrote something. "Stay at the Broken Wheel. That's the hotel past the bank. I'll know if you leave town. Campbell, this place is small enough I know when a dog scratches." Rip untied the roan and walked it down the street. Behind him, he heard Harmon ask Blackwood something but couldn't make out the words. The sheriff's reply came clearer. "Mind your store." The Broken Wheel had a porch that needed paint and windows that needed washing. Inside, a clerk sat behind a counter reading a dime novel. He had thin hair combed sideways and spectacles that caught the light. "Need a room?" The clerk dog-eared his page and stood. "How many nights?" "Don't know yet. It's $1 a night, paid in advance. $2 if you want meals brought up." Rip put 2 silver dollars on the counter. The clerk turned the register around and handed him a pen. "Sign here. Room 4, top of the stairs on the right." Rip signed and took the key. "Where's the livery?" "End of the street, south side. Murphy runs it. Tell him I sent you. He might not cheat you as bad." "That a joke? Do I look like I joke?" The clerk sat back down and found his place in the book. Rip led the roan to the livery. The sign said Murphy's, but nobody answered when he called out. He found an empty stall, stripped the saddle and bridle, gave the horse water and hay. The saddlebags he carried with him, along with his rifle. Back at the hotel, he climbed the stairs. Room 4 had a bed, a chair, and a washstand. The window looked out on the street. He could see the sheriff's office from there, and the sheriff standing outside talking to a man in a brown suit. RIP dropped the saddlebags on the bed and sat in the chair. The money weighed on him different now. Before it had been a question, keep it or turn it in. Now it felt like rope around his neck, getting tighter each time someone looked at him. He pulled the wanted posters out and spread them on the bed. 6 faces staring up at him. One of them might have put the bullet in the dead man. Rip studied the faces on the posters. Vernon Cass with his scar, a man named Pike Devlin wanted in Texas. 3 others with crimes listed in small print: robbery, murder, cattle rustling. The 6th poster showed twin brothers, both wanted for the same bank job in Dodge City. He folded them and put them back in the saddlebag, then pushed the whole thing under the bed. His stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten since the peaches. He locked the door and went downstairs. The clerk was still reading. "Where's the food around here?" The clerk didn't look up. "May's kitchen next to the barber shop." Saloons serve beans and cornbread if you're drinking. Chinese place behind the livery, but I wouldn't eat there. Why not? You want to, or you want my opinion? Rip left him to his book. May's kitchen had 4 tables and a counter with 6 stools. A woman worked the stove, gray hair tied back, arms like she'd spent years kneading bread. 2 men sat at a table near the window eating steak and potatoes. They looked at Rip when he came in, then went back to their plates. He took a stool at the counter. The woman came over, wiping her hands on her apron. What'll it be? Whatever's hot. Steak, potatoes, greens, coffee's fresh. That'll do. She brought the coffee first. Rip wrapped his hands around the cup and let the heat soak in. Through the window, he could see the sheriff's office. Blackwood came out, locked the door, and walked toward the saloon. The food came on a thick plate, steam rising off it. Rip cut into the steak, cooked through but tender. He ate steady, not rushed. One of the men at the table got up and walked over. He was maybe 40, wearing range clothes that had seen work. A Remington hung low on his hip. You're the one brought in the body. Rip kept eating. Word travels. It does. The man leaned against the counter. Name's Victor Cass. Rip's hand stopped halfway to his mouth. He set the fork down and looked at Cass. Up close he could see the family resemblance, same eyes as the man on the wanted poster. Same jawline. No scar though. That means something to me. Depends. You the one found my brother on that porch. Your brother. Cole Hendricks. At least that's the name he was using lately. Cass smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sheriff says he died of a gunshot. Says you tried to help him. That's right. Funny thing, Cole left town 3 days ago with something that belongs to me. Now he's dead, and whatever he had is gone. Cass straightened up. Makes a man wonder. The second man at the table stood. Bigger than Cass, heavier through the shoulders. He came over and stood beside his brother. This is Devlin, Cass said. We're both real curious about what else came in on that horse. Rip picked up his fork and cut another piece of steak. He chewed it slow, swallowed, then looked at Cass. Horse came in with a dead man. That's all the sheriff got. See, that's the problem. Cass pulled out a chair and sat down backwards on it, arms folded across the back. Cole wasn't the type to ride around empty-handed. He had things. Valuable things. Devlin stayed standing, hands loose at his sides. His eyes never left Rip. Sheriff didn't mention anything about valuables. Rip said, maybe you didn't give him the chance. Cass tilted his head. Maybe you took a look in those saddlebags before you rode into town. Found something interesting. Decided to keep it to yourself. May came over with the coffee pot. She filled Rip's cup without asking, then looked at Cass. You buying something or just taking up space? Just talking to our new friend here. Well, talk quieter. You're disturbing my other customers. The 2 men at the table had stopped eating. One of them had his hand under the table where a gun might be. Cass smiled at May. Yes, ma'am. He waited until she went back to the stove, then lowered his voice. Here's how it sits. Campbell. Cole took something that needs returning. You help us find it, there might be a finder's fee in it for you. And if I don't know anything about it, then you got nothing to worry about. Cass stood and pushed the chair back with his boot. We're staying at the Broken Wheel, same as you. Room 2, right across the hall. You think of anything, come knock. They walked out. Through the window, Rip watched them cross the street and stop outside the general store. Cass lit a cigarette and said something to Devlin. They both looked back at May's kitchen. Rip finished his steak. The coffee had gone lukewarm, but he drank it anyway. May came over and picked up his plate. Those 2 are trouble, she said. Been in town 2 days asking questions. Sheriff told them the same thing he told you, stick around. They say what they're looking for. Just that somebody took something from them. She wiped down the counter. You want my advice? Whatever it is they think you have, give it back. Men like that don't ask twice. Rip paid for the meal and walked back to the hotel. The clerk looked up when he came in. Your friends were asking about you, not my friends. Didn't figure they were. They wanted to know what room you're in. I told them, you always this helpful. They paid me $2 to be helpful. You want me unhelpful, that's $2 more. Rip climbed the stairs. Room 2's door was closed, but he could hear voices inside. He unlocked room 4 and went in, locking the door behind him. The saddlebags were still under the bed where he'd left them. He pulled them out and counted the money again. $8,200. More than trouble, a noose waiting to tighten. Rip spread the wanted posters on the bed again. Vernon Cass stared up at him from the paper. $500 reward. Scar running through his left eyebrow. The poster was 3 years old, issued out of Topeka. The man downstairs called himself Victor Cass. Brother maybe, or cousin. Family, either way. Pike Devlin's poster listed him at 6'2", 200 pounds. Wanted for bank robbery in Austin. The description matched the man who'd stood silent in May's kitchen, watching with eyes that didn't blink much. Rip refolded the posters and tucked them back in the saddlebag, close enough to make them nervous about what he'd found. The deputy badge sat at the bottom of the bag. Rip turned it over in his hand. The filed-off name caught lamplight, showing ghost letters underneath. Hendricks for sure. Maybe Cole had been law once, before something went sideways. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Rip pushed the saddlebags under the bed and moved to the door. He stood to the side, hand on his Colt. The footsteps stopped outside his room. A shadow broke the line of light under the door. Someone standing there, not moving, not knocking. 30 seconds passed. A minute, the footsteps moved away, slow and deliberate. Rip heard the door to room to open and close. He waited another 5 minutes before he moved. The window overlooked the street, but there was no way down except the front stairs. He was boxed in if it came to that. He needed information. The sheriff knew something the way Blackwood had looked at the body, asking questions that felt like he already knew the answers. And now Cass and Devlin, showing up right after a dead man came to town. Rip sat in the chair and watched the street through the window. Blackwood came out of the saloon at dusk with another man, both of them laughing about something. They shook hands and the sheriff walked back to his office. Lamplight came on in the buildings. The barbershop closed. A woman in a blue dress hurried past the hotel toward the residential end of town. Rip was watching her disappear into the growing dark when he saw someone else. A younger woman, maybe 25, standing across the street near the general store. She wore a gray traveling dress and carried a small bag. She was looking at the hotel. She stood there for 2 minutes, then crossed the street and came inside. Rip heard her voice downstairs, quiet, asking the clerk something. The clerk's nasal reply, then footsteps on the stairs, lighter than a man's. The knock came soft on his door. "Mr. Campbell, my name is Olivia Mercer. I need to speak with you about the man who died." R.I.P. checked the hallway through the gap in the door. She stood alone, hands folded in front of her, the bag at her feet, dark hair pinned up, face pale in the lamplight. He opened the door wider. "How do you know my name?" "The hotel clerk. He said you brought in a body yesterday." She glanced down the hall to wardroom 2. "May I come in?" This isn't a conversation for the hallway. Rip stepped back and let her in. She picked up her bag and moved past him, smelling like lavender soap. He closed the door but didn't lock it. "You've got 2 minutes." She set the bag down and turned to face him. Up close, he could see she'd been crying recently. Her eyes were red at the corners. "The man who died. Did he tell you his name?" "Never said a word. Couldn't talk by the time I got him inside." "Was there anything with him?" "Papers, a letter." "Why are you asking?" She opened the bag and pulled out a photograph in a tin frame. 2 men standing in front of a house, one with his arm around the other's shoulder. The man on the left was the corpse Rip had brought to town. "That's Cole Hendricks. My husband's brother." She touched the glass over the other man's face. "This was James, my husband. He died 6 months ago." R.I.P. looked at the photograph. James Mercer had Cole's eyes, but a softer face, the kind that smiled easy. "How'd he die?" "Shot during a bank robbery in Silver Creek. He was just walking past when the shooting started." Her voice stayed level, but her hand tightened on the frame. "Cole was a deputy there. He saw it happen. Saw the men who did it ride out with $12,000. And he went after them. The sheriff in Silver Creek said it was too dangerous. Said the territorial marshal would handle it. But Cole didn't wait. He tracked them for 3 months." She put the photograph back in her bag. "He sent me a letter 2 weeks ago. Said he'd found them. Said he'd recovered some of the money. He was bringing it back to Silver Creek. Found who? He didn't say. Just that there were 4 of them and he knew where they were hiding." She looked at him directly. "Did you see his saddlebags? There should have been money. Banknotes with the Silver Creek stamp on them." Rip moved to the window and looked out. The street was empty except for a dog nosing through garbage behind the saloon. "There's 2 men staying in this hotel," he said. "Came in asking about what Cole might have been carrying. They're not lawmen and they're not grieving relatives." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, because I don't know you from them. You could be working together for all I know." She pulled another paper from her bag. A letter, the envelope torn open rough. She handed it to him. The handwriting was cramped but clear. "Evie, I found them. 4 men holed up near Sentinel Bluff. Recovered $8,000 from their camp while they were in town. Taking it back to Silver Creek. If something happens to me, tell Sheriff Watts the money's marked with the bank seal. He'll know what to do. Tell him Blackwood vouched for these men before the robbery. That's how they knew when to hit. Your brother, Cole." Rip read it twice. "Blackwood, the sheriff here. That's why I came. Cole's been dead 2 days, according to the undertaker. But nobody's wired Silver Creek. Nobody's asking questions about where he came from or what he was doing." She took the letter back. "They're covering something up." Rip handed the letter back. "Why come to me?" "Because you're the only person in this town who is on part of whatever's happening here." She folded the letter and put it in her bag. "And because Cole trusted you enough to crawl to that porch. He could have died anywhere in that valley, but he made it to where you were. He didn't know I was there. It was just a place out of the rain. Maybe." She walked to the window and looked out the same way he had. "The clerk said 2 men have been asking about you. What do they look like?" "One's tall, thin, talks smooth. The other's built like a bull and doesn't say much. Victor and Pike." She said it like she'd been expecting it. Cole mentioned them in an earlier letter. Said they were the smart ones, the leaders. The other two are brothers, less careful, more violent. He'd give names for those. Ward and Clayton something. I don't remember. She turned from the window. Where's the money, Mr. Campbell? What makes you think I have it? Because if the sheriff had found it, he'd have buried Cole in a pauper's grave and kept quiet. If Victor had it, he'd be gone already. That leaves you. She crossed her arms. Cole died trying to get that money back to Silver Creek. It belongs to the bank, to the people whose accounts were emptied, not to whoever shoots straightest. Rip sat on the edge of the bed. The springs creaked under his weight. Your brother-in-law tracked 4 killers across 3 territories, found their camp, stole from them, and got himself shot doing it. That sounds like a man worried about bank accounts. It sounds like a man trying to do the right thing, or a man with a grudge and a badge he couldn't let go of. Her face hardened. James was a good man. He didn't deserve what happened to him. Cole was trying to make it right, and now Cole's dead too. That make it right. She picked up her bag. I can see I'm wasting my time here. Hold on. Rip stood. You said Blackwood vouched for these men before the robbery. How would that work? Silver Creek needed a new deputy. Cole was it, but they wanted to. 4 men came through town, a week before the robbery. Blackwood sent a wire saying they were solid citizens, that he'd known them in Kansas. The town council was considering hiring one of them when the bank got hit, and Blackwood got a cut. That's what Cole believed. He said Blackwood had been sending wires to someone in Sentinel Bluff. The territorial marshal was supposed to investigate, but nothing came of it. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy boots, 2 sets. They stopped outside Rip's door. The knock was harder than Olivia's had been. Campbell, Victor's voice, friendly as a snake. We know you got company. Lady came up a while ago. Figured you might all want to talk together. Rip put his finger to his lips. Olivia went still. He moved to the door, standing to the hinge side again. I'm done talking for the day. That's unfriendly. A pause. The lady walked right past our room. Pretty thing in gray. We're just wondering if she's asking the same questions we are. She's asking about her brother-in-law, Cole Hendricks. Victor said it like he was tasting the name. Yeah, we heard he had family. Shame about what happened to him. Getting shot like that, bleeding out slow. Must have been painful. Devlin's voice came through the door, deeper and flat. Should have minded his own business. Olivia's hand went to her mouth. Rip pulled his Colt and eased the hammer back. The click was quiet, but Victor heard it. Now don't go making this complicated, Campbell. We're just talking. Neighbors being neighborly. Talk from your own room. All right, all right. Footsteps moved away, then stopped. One more thing. That lady should probably head home. Sentinel Bluffs, not safe for strangers asking questions. You should tell her that. Being neighborly and all. Their door opened and closed across the hall. Olivia sat down in the chair. Her hands shook and she pressed them against her knees to stop it. They killed him, she said. You heard Devlin. They shot Cole and left him to die. Sounds like it. We have to tell the sheriff. The sheriff who vouched for them, the one Cole said was part of it. Rip holstered the Colt. Blackwood knows what happened. He's known since I brought the body in. That's why he told me to stay in town. He's waiting to see what I do, what you do, waiting to see if that money turns up. She looked at him. You do have it. I have saddlebags that were on a horse. What's in them isn't my business. Then whose business is it? Right now, nobody's. The minute I tell Blackwood about it, he takes it and splits it with Victor. The minute I give it to you, Victor follows you to Silver Creek and takes it from you on the road. The minute I try to leave town with it, somebody puts a bullet in me like they did Cole. So we're trapped. You could leave, go back to Silver Creek, wire the territorial marshal, tell him everything Cole found out, let him handle it. The marshal who did nothing the first time, she shook her head. Cole spent months tracking these men. I'm not letting it end with them walking away. Then you're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll be doing something. She stood and picked up her bag. Where are you staying? I asked. At the general store. There's a boarding house on the north end. Woman named Mrs. Talbot runs it. Don't go there. Victor will be watching for you to leave. Stay here tonight, in your room. You can have the floor. I've got a blanket in my bag. She moved toward the door. Tomorrow, we figure out how to get that money to Silver Creek without getting killed. I didn't say I was helping you. She looked back at him. Yes, you did. The minute you didn't throw me out, you said it. Olivia went to Mrs. Talbot's and came back an hour later with a carpet bag and a bedroll. Rip let her in and locked the door behind her. She spread the bedroll in front of the door. If they come through, they'll have to step over me first. That's a good way to get stepped on. You have a better idea. He didn't. He sat in the chair by the window while she pulled off her shoes and lay down on the bedroll, using her bag as a pillow. She kept her dress on, arms folded across her chest. The night settled in. Sounds from the saloon drifted up the street. Piano music, laughter, breaking glass. A dog barked somewhere. Boots on the boardwalk below. Been heading home or heading out. Around midnight, Olivia's breathing evened out. asleep or close to it. RIP watched the street. A man came out of the saloon and stood under the overhang, lighting a cigarette. The match flared, showing his face. Not Victor or Devlin. Someone else. The man looked up at the hotel windows, then walked away. At 2 in the morning the door to room 2 opened. Footsteps went downstairs. Rip moved to his door and cracked it open. Victor stood in the lobby talking to the clerk, voice too low to hear. The clerk shook his head at something. Victor put money on the counter. The clerk picked it up and said something. Victor nodded and went back upstairs. Rip closed his door and went back to the window. When the sun came up, Olivia stirred. She sat up, rubbing her neck. You didn't sleep. Somebody needed to. She rolled up the bedding and splashed water from the basin on her face. We need to see Cole's body. Why? Because if he was shot in the back, it proves he was ambushed. Running away. That matches what I think happened. He took the money from their camp and they chased him down. You think Blackwood cares about proof? No, but the territorial marshal might, if we live long enough to tell him. She dried her face with her sleeve. And I need to see him. To say goodbye proper. The undertaker's shop was 2 blocks south, marked by a wooden sign with a coffin painted on it. Rip walked with Olivia, keeping to the boardwalk side where he could see reflections in the shop windows. Nobody followed them. Nobody he could see anyway. The undertaker was a small man named Prentice, with soft hands and a quiet voice. He looked at Olivia with practiced sympathy. Your family sister-in-law. I'd like to see him before you bury him. Of course, he's in the back. Prentice led them through a curtain into a room that smelled like formaldehyde and sawdust. Cole Hendricks lay on a table, covered with a sheet up to his chest. Someone had cleaned him up, combed his hair. His face looked younger in death, peaceful. Olivia stood beside the table and put her hand on his. Can you turn him over? Rip asked. Prentice looked uncomfortable. That's not usual. Turn him over. The undertaker and Rip rolled the body. The exit wound was high on the right shoulder blade, small, clean. Shot from the front. Rip said, bullet went through and came out the back. Olivia stared at the wound. He was facing them. Looks that way. Prentice covered the body again, smoothing the sheet with careful hands. Sheriff said it was a robbery gone bad. Said the deceased probably tried to draw and got shot for his trouble. What else did the sheriff say? Rip asked, that nobody's claimed him yet. That if no one does by tomorrow, the county pays for a pine box and a hole. Prentice looked at Olivia. You claiming him? Miss, yes, I'll pay for a proper burial. That'll be $15. Coffin, plot, marker with his name. She opened her bag and counted out the money. Prentice took it and wrote her a receipt. Outside, the morning sun was already heating up the street. A freight wagon rolled past. Driver hunched on the seat. 2 women stood talking outside the general store, both of them looking at Olivia. They shot him face to face. She said, that means he wasn't running. He confronted them, or they caught up to him and gave him a chance to hand over the money. Cole wouldn't have done that. Then they shot him and took the money back. Except they didn't get it. Rip started walking toward the hotel, which means Cole hid it somewhere between their camp and that homestead. Maybe on his horse, maybe buried along the trail. Then he rode until the bullet caught up with him. Olivia kept pace beside him. If he hid it, they'll tear this territory apart, looking for it. They already are. That's why Victor's still here, asking questions, watching. He stopped at the corner. Where's Silver Creek from here? 2 days east. There's a stage road that runs through Turner's Pass, and their camp. Where was that? Cole didn't say exactly. Just that it was near Sentinel Bluff. A man came out of the sheriff's office. Not Blackwood. This one wore range clothes and a gun tied low. He saw Rip and Olivia and stopped. He said something back through the open door. Blackwood stepped out, thumbs hooked in his belt. Campbell, didn't expect to see you out so early. His eyes moved to Olivia. And you brought company. She's claiming the body. That right? Blackwood walked over, boots loud on the boardwalk. What's your name, Miss? Olivia Mercer? Mercer? That wouldn't be related to James Mercer, would it? The man who got killed in Silver Creek. He was my husband. I'm sorry for your loss. Blackwood didn't sound sorry. And now his brother's dead too. That's hard luck for one family. Cole was tracking the men who killed James. He wrote and told me he'd found them here. The sheriff's expression didn't change. Here in Sentinel Bluff, near here. He said there were 4 of them. Said they'd robbed the bank in Silver Creek and someone helped them plan it. Blackwood looked at Rip. She'll tell you the story. Last night, and you believe it. I believe Cole Hendricks got shot. I believe somebody's looking for something they think he had. The man in range clothes moved closer, hand near his gun. Blackwood waved him back. You're talking about serious accusations, miss. Conspiracy, robbery, murder, those are federal crimes. Then maybe you should wire the federal marshal. Blackwood smiled. The federal marshal's a busy man. Can't come running every time someone tells a story about dead relatives and missing money. Cole found $8,000. Money with the Silver Creek Bank seal on it. Olivia kept her voice steady. He was bringing it back when someone shot him. 8,000. Blackwood scratched his jaw. That's a lot of money to be carrying around. You see any money like that, Campbell? Just a dead man and his horse. What about his saddlebags? Had clothes, personal items. Nothing worth mentioning. The sheriff studied him. You sure about that? Because if you're holding on to something that doesn't belong to you, that makes you part of this mess. Makes you an accomplice. Accomplice to what? You haven't said there's been a crime. There hasn't. Not that I know of. Blackwood turned back to Olivia. Your brother-in-law died of a gunshot wound. Could have been bandits, could have been someone he crossed. Without witnesses or evidence, there's nothing to investigate. He gets buried, and you go home to Silver Creek. That's how this ends. What about the men who killed him? What men? You got names? Descriptions? Or just a letter from a dead man with a grudge? The sheriff stepped closer. I knew Cole Hendricks. He came through here a few times. Good man once, but losing his brother turned him bitter. Started seeing conspiracies everywhere. Started tracking men who probably had nothing to do with that robbery. You're protecting them. I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes people die, and there's no one to blame. No justice to be had. That's life out here. He looked at the man in range clothes. Wade, walk Miss Mercer back to Mrs. Talbot's. Make sure she gets there safe. Wade moved toward Olivia. She stepped back. I can walk myself. I'm sure you can. But this town can be rough on women traveling alone. Wade here will make sure nobody bothers you. Blackwood's tone said it wasn't a suggestion. Rip shifted his weight, putting himself between Wade and Olivia. She said she's fine. Wade's hand dropped to his gun. You want to make something of it, Drifter. Wade, Blackwood's voice cut sharp. Stand down. Campbell, you're already on thin ice. Don't make it worse. Two more men came out of the saloon across the street. They stood on the boardwalk watching. One of them was Devlin. Rip looked at Olivia. Go on back to Mrs. Talbot's. I'll come by later. Campbell, go. She hesitated, then walked away. Wade followed 10 feet behind her, close enough to be a threat, far enough to claim he was just walking the same direction. When they were out of sight, Blackwood pulled a cigar from his vest and lit it. He took a long draw and blew smoke toward Rip. You're making friends all over town. First, Victor Cass. Now this widow woman. Next thing you'll be organizing a quilting circle. He flicked ash in the street. Let me make this simple. Miss Mercer needs to get on a stage back to Silver Creek. You need to move along. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you found, forget about it. There's no reward for being a hero. Just an early grave. Rip walked back to the hotel. The clerk was sweeping the floor, pushing dust from one corner to another without much purpose. Your friend across the hall was asking about you again. What did you tell him? That you went out with that lady. He paid me another $1 to let him know when you get back. The clerk kept sweeping. I'm letting you know instead. Call it professional courtesy. Rip climbed the stairs. He unlocked his door and went straight to the bed, pulling out the saddlebags. The money was still there, wrapped tight in its bands. He counted it again, just to be sure. $8,200. He spread the wanted posters on the bed next to the money. 6 faces, 6 names, but only 4 men involved according to Olivia. Vernon Cass wasn't among them. He was wanted in Kansas, nowhere near Silver Creek, but Victor could be related. Family working together. The deputy badge caught light from the window. Rip picked it up and turned it over. Henderson or Hendricks, filed down, but still readable if you knew what to look for. A knock at the door. Light. Quick. He pushed everything under the bed and drew his Colt. It's me. Olivia's voice, barely above a whisper. He opened the door. She slipped inside, breathing hard. Wade followed me to Mrs. Talbot's. Stood outside for 20 minutes. I went out the back. Cut through the alley behind the livery. Blackwood's watching you now. I know. She sat on the edge of the bed. We need to leave. Tonight, both of us. Leave how? There's one road out of town, and Blackwood's got men on it. Wade at minimum, probably others. There's a trail through the hills west of here. Miners used it before the claims played out. It connects to the main road 5 miles south. You know this trail. Mrs. Talbot told me about it. Her husband used to work the claims. She says it's rough but passable on horseback. Rip holstered the Colt and looked out the window. Devlin stood outside the saloon, arms crossed, watching the hotel. Across the street, another man leaned against the barbershop pole. He hadn't been there before. They've got the hotel covered. The livery too. Probably. Then we wait until dark. Create a distraction. What kind of distraction? She pulled something from her bag. A small bottle, cork stopper, liquid sloshing inside. Lamp oil. Mrs. Talbot keeps extra in the shed. I borrowed some. You want to burn something, not something. Just make it look like we might. She set the bottle on the washstand. There's a hay barn behind the livery. Empty right now. We splash some oil on the back wall, light it up, and while everyone's running to put it out, we take the horses and head for the trail. That's arson. It's survival. She looked at him directly. You can stay here and wait for Victor to cut your throat. or you can ride with me to Silver Creek and help me return that money. Your choice. Why do you care so much about the money? Your husband's dead. Your brother-in-law's dead. The bank's insured. They'll survive, because Cole died trying to do the right thing, and I'm not letting these men win." Her voice hardened. They killed James in broad daylight. They hunted Cole across 3 territories. They own the sheriff, and they're walking around free. That ends. Rip sat in the chair. "You know we might not make it, I know, and even if we do, there's no guarantee the marshal does anything about it. Then, at least we tried." He looked at the saddlebags under the bed. $8,000. Enough to disappear, start over somewhere nobody asked questions. Or enough to paint a target on his back for the rest of his life. "All right," he said. "We leave at midnight." They waited. The sun moved across the window, shadows stretching long across the floor. Rip cleaned his Colt, checked the cylinder, reloaded. Olivia sat on the bed, hands folded, not moving much. Around 7, the dinner crowd filled May's kitchen. Noise drifted up from the saloons, piano music, men laughing, the occasional shout. At 9, boots in the hallway. Someone stopped outside the door. Rip put his hand on his gun. The footsteps moved on, going downstairs. 10 o'clock came. Olivia put on her traveling coat and buttoned it to the neck. She tucked the bottle of lamp oil in her pocket. "You know how to ride fast?" Rip asked. "I grew up on a ranch. I can ride." He pulled the saddlebags from under the bed and slung them over his shoulder. The weight felt heavier now, like the money had doubled since morning. At 11:30, they went downstairs. The clerk was asleep in his chair, mouth open, a magazine across his chest. They slipped past him and out the back door into the alley. The night was clear, stars thick overhead. No moon yet. That was good. They moved between buildings, staying in shadows. A cat hissed from a porch and ran. Dogs barked somewhere toward the edge of town, but settled quick. The livery was dark, except for lantern light seeping through cracks in the walls. Rip tried the side door. Locked. He moved to the back where the hay barn stood separate from the main building. 20 feet of open ground between them. Olivia pulled out the bottle and uncorked it. She splashed oil on the back wall of the hay barn, making a line across the boards. The smell was sharp in the still air. "Get the horses ready," she said. "I'll light it when you give the signal." Rip went to the side door again. This time he put his shoulder into it. The lock broke with a crack that sounded too loud. He froze, listening. Nothing stirred inside. He found the roan in its stall, and the bay in the one next to it. Both horses were alert, ears forward. He saddled them quick, working by feel, in the dark. The saddlebags went on the roan, tied down tight. He led both horses to the back door and looked out. Olivia stood by the hay barn, a match ready in her hand. Rip nodded. She struck the match and touched it to the oil. Flames ran up the wall, catching fast, crackling as they spread. Orange light pushed back the darkness. Rip brought the horses out. Olivia ran to the bay and swung up without using the stirrup. They kicked the horses into a run, heading west behind the buildings. Behind them, someone shouted. A bell started ringing. More voices joined in. Men yelling about fire, about water, about the bucket brigade. Rip looked back once. The hay barn was burning good now, flames reaching for the roof. Men ran from the saloons carrying buckets. He didn't see Victor or Devlin in the crowd. They reached the edge of town where the buildings ended and the hills began. Olivia pointed to a gap between 2 ridges. "There, the trail starts past those rocks." They pushed the horses hard, climbing into the hills. Behind them, the fire lit up the sky like a second sunset. The trail climbed steep through loose shale and scrub pine. The horses picked their way careful, hooves sliding on the grade. Rip kept the roan moving, one hand on the reins, the other on the saddle horn for balance. Behind them, the fire glow faded. The hills swallowed it up. Olivia rode close, the bay's breath coming hard. "How far do you think we got?" "Not far enough." The trail leveled out where the ridge flattened. Rip pulled up and listened. Nothing but wind in the pines and the horses blowing hard. He swung down and checked the roan's legs, feeling for heat or swelling. The horse seemed sound. "We need to keep moving," Olivia said. "Horses need a minute. They'll get more than a minute if Victor catches us." Rip walked to the edge of the ridge and looked back. Sentinel Bluffs sat dark in the valley. The fire just a dim orange spot now. No torches on the trail behind them. No riders he could see. He climbed back on the roan. "How long's this trail run?" Mrs. Talbot said 3 hours to the main road. Maybe 4 in the dark. They rode on. The trail switched back on itself, climbing higher. Rocks jutted from the hillside like broken teeth. An owl called from somewhere in the trees. The moon came up around 2, half full, throwing shadows across the trail. It helped some. Rip could see the path better, see the drop-offs that fell away into nothing. They'd been riding an hour when the roan's ears went back. Rip pulled up. "You hear that?" Olivia stopped beside him. They sat quiet, listening, hoofbeats. Coming up the trail behind them, more than one horse. How many? Olivia's voice was tight. 3, maybe 4. Rip looked ahead. The trail narrowed through a cut in the rock. barely wide enough for a single horse. Past that, it opened up again. We can't outrun them. Not on this ground. Then what do we do? He pointed to the cut. Through there, then find cover and make them think twice about following. They urged the horses forward into the narrow passage. The walls pressed close on both sides, rock scraping against Rip's stirrups. The roan didn't like it, tossing its head, but kept moving. They came out the other side, where the trail opened onto a flat shelf of rock. Scrub oak grew thick to the left. To the right, the ground dropped 50 feet to a creek bed. Rip dismounted and pulled his rifle. Take the horses into those trees. Keep them quiet. What are you doing? Slowing them down. He moved to the edge of the cut and knelt behind a boulder. From here he could see back down the trail 20 yards. The hoofbeats got louder, closer. 3 riders came into view. Victor in front, then Devlin, then Wade. They rode, bunched together, moving fast. Rip let them get within 30 feet of the cut, then fired. The bullet kicked up rock dust 6 inches from the roan's front hoof. Victor's horse reared. Devlin hauled back on his reins. Wade's mount spun sideways. Rip worked the lever and fired again, this time higher, over their heads. The 3 men scattered off the trail, looking for cover where there wasn't much to find. Victor's voice came from behind a rock outcrop. That's a mistake, Campbell. Rip didn't answer. He watched the 3 men spread out, looking for angles. Devlin moved left, working his way upslope through the scrub. Wade stayed low behind a fallen pine. We just want to talk, Victor said. You got something that belongs to us. We get it back. Everybody rides away. Rip fired at the fallen pine. Wade ducked lower. You already killed 1 man for it, Rip called back. Why should I think you'd let us walk? Cole made his choice. He stole from us. We took it back. That's business. Victor shifted position, moving closer to the cut. But you're not Cole. You're just a drifter who picked up the wrong saddlebags. Hand them over. You and the woman can go. Devlin had worked his way almost to the ridgeline above the trail. Another minute and he'd have position to fire down on Rip's cover. Rip aimed and squeezed. The shot hit rock 2 feet from Devlin's head. The big man flattened himself against the slope. That's your warning, Rip said. Next one's not high. A gun barked from the right. Wade, firing at the sound of Rip's voice. The bullet whined off the boulder. Rip moved to the other side of his cover and fired back. Wade's hat flew off. The man scrambled behind thicker timber. You can't shoot all 3 of us, Victor said. He was closer now, maybe 15 yards from the cut. And you can't stay there forever. We got time. You don't. Rip looked back at the trees where Olivia hid with the horses. He couldn't see her, but he could make out the bay's rump through the branches. Devlin started moving again, crawling up the slope. Rip put a round near his hand. Devlin froze. Last chance, Campbell. You got maybe 6 shots left in that rifle. Then what? You pull your pistol and we rush you. Or Devlin gets above you and shoots down. Either way, you lose. Then I guess we all lose. RIP worked the lever. Because I'm taking at least one of you with me. You want to decide who? Silence. Wind moved through the pines. The creek below made a sound like whispers. Victor laughed, short and without humor. You got sand, I'll give you that. But you're playing this wrong. That money's not yours. Hell, it's not even the bank's anymore. We earned it, planned it, executed it, got away clean. Then Cole Hendricks decided to play hero and took what we worked for. He was taking it back to Silver Creek. Silver Creek's got insurance. They'll be fine, but we put months into that job. Cased the bank, bought the sheriff, set up the timing. That's our money. Bought the sheriff, Rip said. Blackwood told you we left town. He told us about the fire, figured you'd run. We figured the same, only question was which way. Victor moved again. 10 yards from the cut now. Wade, you got a shot on him? Not yet. Work on it. RIP checked his ammunition. 5 rounds left in the rifle, 6 in his Colt. Not enough for a prolonged fight. He looked at the cut. Narrow, defensible, but only if he held this position. Once Victor got through, it was over. Behind him, a branch snapped. Rip spun. Olivia stood at the edge of the trees, rifle in her hands, not his Winchester. A lighter carbine pulled from the bay's saddle boot. She moved to a position 10 feet to his right, using a split boulder for cover. She worked the lever, chambering around. I can shoot, she said quietly. Can you hit anything? Rabbits, mostly. Sometimes deer. She sighted down the barrel toward where Wade was hiding. Men are bigger. Devlin made his move, rushing up the slope, toward the ridgeline. Olivia tracked him and fired. The shot went wide but close enough that Devlin dove behind an outcrop. Not bad, Rip said. Wade returned fire. 2 quick shots that hit the split boulder, spraying rock chips. Olivia didn't flinch. She fired back, steady, not rushing it. Victor's voice came angry now. That how you want to play it? Fine, we got all night, and when we're done with Campbell, we'll take our time with you. Lady, you talk too much. Olivia called back. She fired toward his voice. Victor went quiet. Rip watched Devlin on the slope. The big man had good cover now, but couldn't advance without exposing himself. Wade was pinned behind the timber. That left Victor Moosprith's peripheral vision. Victor, breaking from cover, sprinting for the cut. Rip swung the rifle around, to slow. Victor was fast. Low to the ground, closing the distance. Olivia's carbine cracked. Victor stumbled, grabbing his left arm, but kept moving. He made it to the rock wall beside the cut and pressed flat against it. Got him in the arm, Olivia said. Victor was breathing hard on the other side of the wall, 6 feet away, too close for the rifle to be useful. Rip drew his Colt. You shot me, Victor said. He sounded surprised. The lady actually shot me. I was aiming for your chest, Olivia said. I'll remember that. Victor's gun came around the corner blind. He fired 3 times fast. The bullets went wild, hitting nothing but air and rock. Rip aimed at where Victor's body would be if he stepped out. He waited. Wade fired from the timber. The round hit near Olivia's position. She pulled back behind the boulder. Devlin used the distraction. He came over the ridgeline firing, 2 shots that forced Rip to duck. Victor stepped into the cut. Rip fired twice. The first shot hit Victor in the shoulder, spinning him. The second caught him high in the chest. Victor went down on one knee. His gun fell from his hand. He looked at Rip with an expression like he'd been cheated at cards. That money, he said. Blood showed at the corner of his mouth. Was ours. He toppled forward and didn't move. Wade screamed something wordless and charged from the timber, firing as he came. Rip shot him once in the leg. Wade went down hard, his gun skittering across the rock. Devlin stood on the ridge, rifle to his shoulder. He had the angle now, had the shot, but he didn't take it. He lowered the rifle and looked down at Victor's body. At Wade, writhing on the ground, then at Rip. Keep the money, Devlin said. His voice carried flat across the distance. I'm done. He turned and walked back down the slope toward his horse. Rip kept his Colt trained on Devlin until the man disappeared down the trail. The sound of hoofbeats faded into the hills. Wade rolled onto his side, clutching his leg. Blood seeped between his fingers. I need a doctor. You need to keep pressure on that. R.I.P. walked over and kicked Wade's gun into the creek bed below. Town's back the way you came. You can crawl if you have to. I'm bleeding. Should have thought of that before you started shooting. Rip holstered his Colt and moved to where Victor lay. He checked for a pulse. Nothing. The man's eyes stared at the sky. Seeing nothing, Olivia came out from behind the boulder. She was shaking, the carbine held loose in both hands. She looked at Victor, then at Wade, then at the rifle, like she didn't know how it had gotten there. Rip took it from her and leaned it against the rock. You did good. I shot a man. You kept us alive. That's different. She turned away and walked to the edge of the shelf. She stood there with her arms wrapped around herself, not moving. Rip went through Victor's pockets. Some coins, a folding knife, a railroad watch. In his vest pocket, a telegram folded small. Rip opened it and held it to catch the moonlight. The wire was from Blackwood to Victor, dated 3 days ago. 2 words, he's here. Rip pocketed the telegram and walked to where Wade sat propped against a rock. How much did Blackwood get? Wade spat blood. Go to hell, you're already shot. I can make it worse, or I can leave you here with a chance. Your call. Wade looked at his leg, then at Rip's gun. 2,000. That was the deal. He tells us when anyone comes asking questions, keeps the law off our backs. And the other 2, the brothers, Ward and Clayton, are camped south of here, waiting to hear from Victor. Wade grimaced. They're not going to be happy when they find out what happened. We're South Canyon, about 10 miles from town. There's a creek runs through it, old mining cabin on the north side. Rip stood. You tell them whatever you want. Tell them we've got the money and we're headed to Silver Creek. Tell them Victor's dead and Devlin quit. Tell them I'll kill them too if they come looking. They'll come anyway. Ward's got a temper and Clayton follows him everywhere. Then they're fools. Rip walked back to where Olivia stood. We need to move. Get some distance before sunrise. She didn't turn around. I killed a man tonight. You wounded him. I killed him. Does that matter? To me it does. To you, maybe. He touched her shoulder, but we can talk about it later. Right now we ride. She nodded and walked to the trees where the horses waited. The bay shifted when she approached, but settled when she spoke to it. Rip mounted the roan and looked back at Wade. You got about an hour before you bleed out. I'd start moving if I were you. They rode through the cut and back onto the trail, leaving Victor's body behind. They reached the main road as the sky turned gray in the east. The trail dumped them onto hard-packed dirt that ran south toward Silver Creek. Rip pulled up and checked both directions. Empty. Olivia slumped in the saddle, eyes half closed. How far to Silver Creek? Day and a half, if we push. 2 days, if we don't. The horses are tired. So are we. Rip pointed to a stand of cottonwoods 100 yards off the road. We'll rest there for an hour. Let the horses graze, get some water. They led the animals to the trees. A creek ran shallow through the grove, water moving clear over smooth stones. The horses drank long and deep. Rip unsaddled the roan and rubbed it down with a handful of grass. The saddlebags he kept close. never more than arm's reach away. Olivia sat with her back against a cottonwood, eyes closed. Her dress was dirty, torn at the hem. Dust covered her from neck to boots. R.I.P. pulled out hardtack and dried beef from his supplies. He handed her half. She took it but didn't eat. Wade said, "There's 2 more. Brothers, Ward and Clayton. Camped in a canyon south of Sentinel Bluff. They'll come after us. Maybe, or maybe they cut their losses and ride out." Victor was the leader. Without him they might scatter. You don't believe that. He didn't. Men who robbed banks and killed witnesses didn't quit easy. They'd come. Question was when. Olivia finally ate, chewing slow, like her jaw hurt. "When we get to Silver Creek, what happens? We give the money to the bank, tell the sheriff what happened, and then you go home. I keep riding." She looked at him. "Just like that. You hand over $8,000 and walk away. It's not my money. You could keep some of it. A reward. You earned it. I didn't earn anything. I just didn't get killed yet." He bit into the hardtack. It tasted like wood. Besides, rewards come with questions. Where'd you find it? Who'd you take it from? How many men died? I don't need those questions. You need something. A man doesn't drift this long without a reason. Maybe I like drifting. Nobody likes drifting. They just haven't found a reason to stop. Rip didn't answer. He finished his food and stood, walking to the creek. He knelt and splashed water on his face. The cold woke him up some. Behind him, Olivia spoke. "My husband wanted to buy land, build a house, raise cattle. He worked for the railroad for 3 years, saving money. Then one morning he walked past a bank at the wrong time and somebody shot him. I'm sorry, Cole tried to tell me it wasn't my fault, that I couldn't have stopped it. But James was only at that bank because I asked him to deposit my egg money." Her voice stayed level, but her hands twisted in her lap. $30. That's what he died for. $30 and being in the wrong place. And now you're risking your life to return money that won't bring him back. "No, I'm risking my life so the men who killed him don't win." She stood and brushed off her dress. "That's different. Rip, let it alone." They rested another 30 minutes, then saddled up and rode south. The sun climbed hot and bright. No clouds, no shade, except what the horses cast on the road. Rip watched their back trail, looking for dust, riders, anything that moved. Nothing came. They made 20 miles by noon. The road ran straight through open country, grass stretching flat to low hills on both sides. A freight wagon passed, going north, the driver nodding but not stopping. An hour later, a man on a mule heading the same direction they were. He kept his distance. Rip turned off the road, where a creek cut through the grassland. They followed it west, until they found a spot with good sight lines could see a quarter mile in every direction. "We'll stop here. Let the horses rest proper." Olivia dismounted and walked to the creek. She knelt and drank from her cupped hands, then splashed water on her face and neck. When she stood, her expression had changed. Harder somehow. "I've been thinking about Ward and Clayton." "What about them?" Wade said. "They're camped in a canyon, waiting to hear from Victor." She walked back to where Rip stood. "They don't know Victor's dead yet. They don't know we got away. They'll know soon enough. What if we make sure they know now? What if we go to them instead of waiting for them to come to us?" Rip stared at her. "You want to ride into their camp?" "I want to end this. These men killed my husband. They hunted Cole for 3 months. They shot him and left him to die in the rain." Her jaw set. "I'm tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder. If we're taking this money to Silver Creek, I want to know nobody's coming after us. There's 2 of them, maybe more. Could be others we don't know about. There's 2 of us, and we have surprise." She checked the carbine, working the action. "Wade told you where they are. 10 miles south of Sentinel Bluff in a canyon with a mining cabin. We find them, we finish this. And if we're wrong, if they see us coming, then we fight. Same as we did last night." She looked at him direct. "You said you were tired of drifting, tired of no reasons to stop. Here's a reason. Help me put these men down. Then maybe we both can stop looking back." Rip walked to the creek and filled his canteen. The water was cold, tasted like minerals. He drank long, thinking going after Ward and Clayton was foolish. They'd be on their own ground, alert, armed, 2 against 2, at best, worse, if they had help. Smart thing was to keep riding, get to Silver Creek, let the law handle it. Except the law was Blackwood, bought and paid for, and the territorial marshal hadn't done anything when James Mercer got killed, hadn't stopped the robbery, hadn't caught the men responsible. He capped the canteen and walked back to Olivia. "All right, but we do it careful. Scout the camp first, find their positions. Then we decide if we go in or keep riding." Agreed. They rode east, backtracking toward Sentinel Bluff. The sun moved past its peak, shadows starting to lengthen. Rip kept them off the main road, using deer trails and creek beds to stay hidden. Around 4, they reached the hills south of town. Ieprid dismounted and climbed a ridge on foot, moving quiet through the scrub. At the top he went flat and looked down. A canyon opened below, maybe a mile long, steep walls on both sides. A creek ran through the center. On the north side, a cabin sat tucked against the canyon wall, smoke rising thin from its chimney. 3 horses in a corral beside the cabin. 3, not 2. Rip crawled back down the ridge to where Olivia waited with the horses. There's 3 of them down there. Ward, Clayton, and somebody else. They made 20 miles by noon. The road ran straight through open country, grass stretching flat to low hills on both sides. A freight wagon passed, going north, the driver nodding but not stopping. An hour later, a man on a mule heading the same direction they were. He kept his distance. Rip turned off the road, where a creek cut through the grassland. They followed it west, until they found a spot with good sight lines could see a quarter mile in every direction. We'll stop here. Let the horses rest proper. Olivia dismounted, and walked to the creek. She knelt and drank from her cupped hands, then splashed water on her face and neck. When she stood, her expression had changed. Harder somehow. I've been thinking about Ward and Clayton. What about them? Wade said. They're camped in a canyon. Waiting to hear from Victor, she walked back to where Rip stood. They don't know Victor's dead yet. They don't know we got away. They'll know soon enough. What if we make sure they know now? What if we go to them instead of waiting for them to come to us? Rip stared at her. You want to ride into their camp. I want to end this. These men killed my husband. They hunted Cole for 3 months. They shot him and left him to die in the rain. Her jaw set. I'm tired of running. Tired of looking over my shoulder. If we're taking this money to Silver Creek, I want to know nobody's coming after us. There's 2 of them, maybe more. Could be others we don't know about. There's 2 of us, and we have surprised. She checked the carbine, working the action. Wade told you where they are. 10 miles south of Sentinel Bluff in a canyon with a mining cabin. We find them, we finish this, and if we're wrong, if they see us coming, then we fight. Same as we did last night. She looked at him direct. You said you were tired of drifting, tired of no reasons to stop. Here's a reason. Help me put these men down. Then maybe we both can stop looking back. Rip walked to the creek and filled his canteen. The water was cold, tasted like minerals. He drank long, thinking going after Ward and Clayton was foolish. They'd be on their own ground, alert, armed, 2 against 2, at best, worse, if they had help. Smart thing was to keep riding, get to Silver Creek, let the law handle it. Except the law was Blackwood, bought and paid for, and the territorial marshal hadn't done anything when James Mercer got killed, hadn't stopped the robbery, hadn't caught the men responsible. He capped the canteen and walked back to Olivia. All right, but we do it careful. Scout the camp first, find their positions. Then we decide if we go in or keep riding. Agreed. They rode east, backtracking toward Sentinel Bluff. The sun moved past its peak, shadows starting to lengthen. Rip kept them off the main road, using deer trails and creek beds to stay hidden. Around 4, they reached the hills south of town. Ieprid dismounted and climbed a ridge on foot, moving quiet through the scrub. At the top he went flat and looked down. A canyon opened below, maybe a mile long. Steep walls on both sides. A creek ran through the center. On the north side, a cabin sat tucked against the canyon wall, smoke rising thin from its chimney. 3 horses in a corral beside the cabin. 3, not 2. Rip crawled back down the ridge to where Olivia waited with the horses. There's 3 of them down there. Ward, Clayton, and somebody else. Olivia checked her carbine again, fingers working the lever like she needed something to do with her hands. 3 changes things. It does. Rip studied the canyon from their position in the trees. Could be Devlin came back. Or Wade made it down here and warned them, or they had someone else with them all along. Either way, we're outnumbered. He moved back from the ridge. We should keep riding. No, she said it flat. No room for argument. We came this far. I'm not turning back now. You're going to get killed. Maybe, but at least I'll know I tried. She looked at him. You can leave if you want. Take half the money, ride out. I won't blame you. Rip pulled his hat off and wiped sweat from his forehead. The sun was dropping toward the hills, turning the sky orange. Another hour and it'd be dark. Tell me about the cabin. What did you see? He put his hat back on. 1 room probably. Stone chimney on the east side, door facing south toward the creek. 1 window I could see, maybe more on the back wall. Corrals west of the cabin. Horses looked calm. Nobody moving around outside. So they're inside, all 3 of them. That's my guess. She was quiet for a minute, thinking. What if we wait until full dark? Come down opposite sides of the canyon. You take the corral, run the horses off. I get positioned by the creek. When they come out to see what's happening, we have them in a crossfire. They might not come out. Might just shoot through the window. Then we burn them out. Same as the hay barn. R.I.P. looked at her. You're serious about this? I told you I was. She checked his son. We've got an hour to get in position. After that, we either do this or we don't. He thought about the telegraph in his pocket. Blackwood's message to Victor. 2 words that had started all of this. The sheriff knew they'd come to town. Probably knew they'd left. My T have already sent word to Ward and Clayton about what happened last night, which meant the men in that cabin were waiting, watching, ready. Going in was suicide. But Olivia was right about one thing. They couldn't run forever. Ward and Clayton would track them to Silver Creek, kill them on the road or in town. Men like that didn't quit, didn't forget. "All right," he said, "we do it your way. But if it goes wrong, you ride out. Don't wait for me. Don't try to be a hero. Just go." Same goes for you. They waited for the sun to drop. When the shadows filled the canyon floor, they split up. Olivia took the east side, working her way down through the rocks. Rip went west, leading the roan quiet through the scrub. The cabin sat dark now, except for firelight showing through the cracks around the door. No movement outside. The horses in the corral stood hipshot dozing. Rip tied the roan to a juniper and moved toward the corral on foot. He stayed low, using the terrain for cover. When he reached the fence, he could hear voices from inside the cabin. Men talking, one of them laughing. He opened the corral gate slow. The hinges creaked. One of the horses lifted its head. Rip moved into the corral and slapped the nearest horse on the rump. It spooked and ran for the open gate. The other two followed, hooves drumming on hard ground. The cabin door flew open. A man stood silhouetted against the firelight, rifle in his hands. Not Ward or Clayton, Devlin. Devlin stepped onto the porch, squinting into the darkness. "Horses are out." Two more men came through the door behind him. One was tall and rangy, the other shorter but thick through the chest. Ward and Clayton. Had to be. Rip stayed flat behind the corral fence, 30 feet from the cabin. Too far for a pistol shot in the dark. He watched Devlin walk toward the corral, rifle ready. "Thought you were done," Rip called out. Devlin stopped. He turned slow, trying to place the voice. "Campbell. Should have known he didn't raise the rifle. I came back to warn them. Tell them what happened to Victor. That why you're holding that Winchester? That's because I don't trust you not to shoot me." Devlin took another step forward. "I told you I was done with the money. I meant it. But Ward and Clayton are my partners. Been riding together 5 years. I owed them the truth." Ward came off the porch, gun drawn. "Where is he?" "By the corral." Devlin still hadn't raised his rifle. "Campbell, you got about 3 seconds before Ward starts shooting everything that moves. You want to talk or you want to die. I want you three to saddle up and ride out. Leave the territory. Don't come back." Ward laughed. It came harsh and mean. "You got sand, I'll give you that. Coming down here alone, making demands, he's not alone." Olivia's voice came from the creek, clear and steady. "I've got a carbine aimed at your back. Ward, drop the gun." Ward spun to Ward, her voice. Clayton moved left, looking for a target in the shadows. "Lady, you don't know what you're doing," Ward said. "I know you killed my husband in Silver Creek. I know you shot Cole Hendricks and left him to bleed." Olivia's carbine cracked. The bullet kicked up dirt at Ward's feet. "Next one goes higher." Ward dropped his pistol. Clayton raised his hands. "Easy now. Nobody needs to get shot." Rip stood and moved toward the cabin. Colt drawn, he picked up Ward's pistol and stuck it in his belt. Devlin still hadn't moved. The rifle hung loose in his hands. "You said you were done," Rip said to him. "I am, but I can't speak for these two." Devlin looked at Ward. "Victor's dead. Wade's shot. The money's gone. It's over." "The hell it is." Ward's face twisted. "That money took us 6 months to plan. We bought that sheriff, set up the timing, did everything right. Then that damn deputy stuck his nose in and stole from us. He was taking it back to where it belonged." Olivia said. "She came out of the shadows by the creek, carbine to her shoulder, and now we're doing the same." Clayton shifted his weight. His hand drifted toward his belt. "Don't," Rip said. Clayton froze. "Just scratching an itch. Scratch it, slow." Ward turned to Devlin. "You going to let them do this? Just walk away with our money." "It's not our money anymore. Never was." Devlin set his rifle down and stepped away from it. "Go to Silver Creek. Return it. I'm riding to California. You two should do the same." "Coward, maybe. But I'm a live coward." Devlin walked to where the horses had scattered. He caught one by the mane and swung up bareback. "Campbell, you keep your word. I keep mine. We're square." He rode out of the canyon heading south. Ward watched him go, jaw working. Then he looked at Rip. "You think you won? But Blackwood's still in Sentinel Bluff. He's still getting paid. And when the next gang comes through, he'll help them too. That's how it works out here." Rip motioned with the Colt. "Both of you, face the cabin wall. Hands flat against it." Ward and Clayton moved slow. They stood with their palms pressed to the rough wood, legs spread. Olivia came closer, carbine still aimed. "What now?" "Check them for weapons." She moved to Clayton first, patting him down. She pulled a derringer from his boot and a folding knife from his vest pocket. Ward had a second pistol tucked in the small of his back and a knife in his belt. Rip took the weapons and threw them in the creek. "Inside both of you." They went through the door into the cabin. One room like Rip figured. 2 bunks against the far wall. A table with 3 chairs, a stove with a coffee pot on it. Bedrolls on the floor. Saddlebags hanging from pegs. "Sit at the table. Hands where I can see them." Ward and Clayton sat. Rip stayed by the door, gun trained on them. Olivia moved to the saddlebags and opened them one at a time. Clothes, ammunition, food supplies. In the third bag she found papers. Deeds, she said. Property deeds from Silver Creek, made out 2 different names. She looked at Ward. You weren't just robbing the bank. You were stealing people's land. Ward shrugged. Bank held the deeds. We took what was there. How many families lost their homes because of you? Don't know, don't care. Ward leaned back in his chair. You want to feel righteous? Go ahead. But we're not the only ones doing this. Every territory's got men taking what they can. Law can't stop it, won't stop it. Maybe not, but I can stop you. Olivia set the deeds on the table. These are coming with us. Back to Silver Creek where they belong. Clayton spoke for the first time, voice soft. You're making a mistake. Let us go, we'll ride out. You'll never see us again. Like you'd never go back to robbing banks. Olivia shook her head. No, you're going to Silver Creek too. In chains, if we can find them. There's no chains here, Rip said, and we can't watch them all night. Then what do you suggest? He thought about it. They couldn't take Ward and Clayton with them. 2 prisoners on horseback would slow them down. Give them chances to escape or fight back. Couldn't leave them here either. They'd ride to Sentinel Bluff, warn Blackwood, maybe gather more men. Horses, Rip said. Take their boots and horses. Leave them on foot. By the time they walk out of here, we'll be in Silver Creek with the law. Ward's face darkened. That's a death sentence. It's 15 miles to town through rough country. You'll make it if you start at first light. If you don't, that's on you. And if we go to Blackwood instead of leaving the territory, then the territorial marshal will have your names, your faces, and a full accounting of the Silver Creek robbery. He'll hunt you down. Rip moved closer to the table. Or you can take your chances on foot and disappear. Your choice. Clayton looked at Ward. Take the walk. We can get horses in the next town. Be in Mexico in a week. Ward's hands curled into fists on the table. I'm not letting them. It's done. Ward, Victor's dead. Devlin's gone. We lost. Clayton stood slowly, hands still visible. We take the walk. Ward stared at his brother, then at Rip. Finally he nodded. Boots off, Rip said, nice and slow. They pulled off their boots and set them on the floor. Rip kicked them into the corner. Now outside. Move. They walked Ward and Clayton into the canyon. Far from the cabin, the brothers stood in their socks on the rocky ground, arms crossed against the night cold. Your horses will be tied 3 miles south on the main road, Rip said. You can collect them after we're gone. Try following us before that. You'll regret it. Ward spat in the dirt. This isn't over. It is for you. Rip backed away, guns still drawn. Start walking north at dawn. Don't stop until you're out of the territory. He and Olivia returned to the cabin. They gathered the saddlebags with the deeds, took what food and ammunition they could use, and caught the 3 horses from where they'd scattered along the creek. They rode out, leading the extra horse loaded with supplies. Behind them, the cabin sat dark and empty. They made the main road by midnight. Rip tied Ward and Clayton's horses to a tree where they'd find them. Then they pushed south, toward Silver Creek. The sky lightened in the east. Olivia rode beside him, quiet for a long stretch. Finally she spoke. You think they'll really leave the territory? Doubt it? Men like that don't change. He shifted in the saddle, but it buys us time. Gets us to Silver Creek before they can regroup. And Blackwood. We tell the bank president everything. Show him the deeds, the money, Cole's letter. Let him decide what to do about a crooked sheriff. They rode through the morning, stopping only to rest the horses. The land changed as they went, hills giving way to flatter ground, more ranches, more signs of settlement. Around noon they crested a rise and saw Silver Creek spread below in a valley. Bigger than Sentinel Bluff. 2-story buildings, a church with a steeple, streets laid out in a grid. The bank sat on the main corner, brick construction with bars on the windows. They rode into town mid-afternoon. People stopped to watch them pass a man and woman covered in trail dust, leading a 3rd horse, both carrying rifles. Rip pulled up in front of the bank and dismounted. His legs felt stiff, back sore from 3 days hard riding. Olivia climbed down and stood beside him. She looked at the bank like it might vanish if she blinked. We made it, she said. Not done yet. Rip pulled the saddlebags off the roan. They felt heavier now than when he'd first found them. You ready? She straightened her dress, pushed hair back from her face. I'm ready. They walked through the bank's front door. A clerk looked up from his desk. His eyes went to the saddlebags, to their guns, back to their faces. We're here to see Samuel Watts, Olivia said. Tell him Olivia Mercer needs to speak with him about the robbery. Tell him we brought something back. The clerk stood and disappeared through a door behind the counter. A minute later a man emerged. 50 years old, gray beard, expensive suit. He looked at them with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Mercer, I heard about Cole. I'm very sorry. His gaze shifted to Rip. And you are? Rip Campbell. I'm the one who found Cole Hendricks dying, found what he was carrying. To Watts's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Perhaps we should speak in my office. Watts's office had wood paneling and a desk the size of a dining table. He closed the door behind them and gestured to 2 leather chairs. "Sit, please." Rip set the saddlebags on the desk. Watts looked at them like a man looks at something he thought he'd never see again. "May I?" Olivia nodded. Watts opened the first bag and pulled out a stack of bills. He examined the band around them, turned it over, held it to the light. His finger traced the bank seal stamped on the wrapper. $8,200. He opened the second bag and found the deeds. He spread them on the desk and read through them one at a time. Properties scattered throughout the county. The Henderson's place, the Morrison Ranch. These were all in our vault. Cole tracked the men who took them, Olivia said. He found their camp and recovered what he could. He was bringing it back here when they shot him. Who shot him? Rip pulled the telegram from his pocket and laid it on the desk. Sheriff Blackwood in Sentinel Bluff. He was working with them. Vouched for them before the robbery. Warned them when Cole got close. Watts, read the telegram. His jaw tightened. And the men themselves, where are they now? One's dead. One ran. The other 2 we left on foot in a canyon north of here. Rip leaned back in the chair. They might come to Silver Creek looking for the money. Might not. Hard to say their names. Ward and Clayton. Brothers don't know their last names. There was also a man called Victor Cass and another named Pike Devlin. Watts wrote the names on a piece of paper. I'll wire the territorial marshal immediately. Give him everything you've told me. If these men show their faces anywhere in the territory, they'll hang. And Blackwood, Olivia asked, the marshal will handle him too. Though a sheriff working with outlaws, that'll need federal marshals involved. Could take time. Watts folded his hands on the desk. In the meantime, I owe you both a debt. The bank, the town. This money means families keep their homes. Keep their land. We didn't do it for thanks, Rip said. Nevertheless. Watts opened a drawer and pulled out a ledger. He wrote something, then opened a metal box and counted out bills. The bank offered a $500 reward for the return of stolen funds. It's yours. Olivia started to speak, but Watts held up his hand. Cole earned this. He tracked these men for months, risked his life, died for it. He pushed the money toward her. You finished what he started. Take it. She looked at the money, then at Rip. Split it. Half for each of us. It's yours. Rip said, it's ours. You could have kept all of it. Disappeared, but you helped me bring it back. She counted out $250 and handed it to him. Partners split even. Rip took the money. It felt different than the $8,000 had. Lighter somehow. Watts stood. You'll both need to give statements to our local sheriff. For the record, then you're free to go. He looked at Olivia. Where will you go, Mrs. Mercer? Home. I've got a ranch that needs tending. And you, Mr. Campbell? Rip looked at Olivia. She met his eyes and didn't look away. Don't know yet, he said. Haven't decided. The Silver Creek sheriff was a man named Cullen, built solid, gray at the temples. He took their statements in his office, writing everything down in careful script. When they finished, he set his pen aside. I knew Cole Hendricks. Worked with him before he left for Sentinel Bluff. Good lawman, stubborn, but good. He looked at Olivia. He talked about me. When you catch them, Olivia said. When Cullen turned back. You planning to stick around Silver Creek for a while? I need to see to Cole's burial. Then back to the ranch. You need help out there. Let me know. I can send a deputy by once a week. Make sure you're safe. I appreciate it. Cullen looked at Rip. What about you? You staying or moving on? Haven't decided. Well, if you decide to stay, Silver Creek could use a man who knows how to handle himself. We've been short a deputy since Cole left. He sat back down at his desk. Think about it. Job pays $40 a month plus room at the boarding house. Rip nodded but didn't answer. You tracked 4 killers across the territory, faced them down, brought back stolen money. Sounds like lawman work to me. That was different. How? We didn't have an answer for that. They walked to the livery where they'd left the horses. The liveryman had fed and watered them, brushed them down. Rip paid him and led the roan outside. Where's your ranch? He asked. 10 miles west, up in the hills where the grass stays green. She climbed onto the bay. You want to see it? I should probably keep moving. You've been saying that for 3 days. She settled into the saddle. Come, see the place. Stay for supper. Rip looked at the road heading south out of town. Empty and dusty, and going nowhere he needed to be. Then he looked at Olivia, sitting on the bay, waiting. Supper, he said, then I'm gone. She smiled. We'll see. They rode west out of Silver Creek. The land rose gentle into hills covered with oak and pine. A creek ran through a meadow, water clear over smooth stones. At the far end of the meadow, a house sat beneath tall trees. Log construction, solid, with a porch that wrapped around two sides. A barn stood behind the house, corrals empty but in good repair. Garden plot beside the house, weeds grown high but the fence still straight. Olivia dismounted and stood looking at it all. James built the house, himself. Took him 2 years. We were going to run cattle, maybe horses. Had it all planned out. Rip climbed down and tied the roan to the porch rail. The house looked empty but cared for. Someone had been keeping it up, who's been watching the place. Neighbors down the valley. The Hutchinsons, they've been checking on it, keeping it from falling apart. She walked onto the porch. I haven't been back since the funeral. Couldn't face it. She unlocked the door and went inside. Rip followed. The main room had a fireplace, a table with 4 chairs, a rocking chair by the window. Everything neat and organized. A photograph on the mantel showed James and Olivia on their wedding day, both of them young and smiling. Olivia touched the frame, then moved to the kitchen. She opened the pantry and found it stocked flour, beans, coffee, preserves. Hutchinsons, she said. They must have brought supplies. She built a fire in the stove and started supper. Rip sat at the table and watched her move around the kitchen like she was remembering how after a while he got up and helped, slicing potatoes while she worked on the meat. They ate as the sun set, light coming golden through the windows. Neither of them talked much. Didn't need to. When they finished, Olivia poured coffee and they sat on the porch watching darkness fill the valley. You could stay, she said. Help me get this place running again. There's work enough for 2. I'm not a rancher either. You're not a lot of things, but you're here. She sipped her coffee. That ought to count for something. Rip spent the night in the barn, bedroll spread on clean hay. The roan and bay stood quiet in their stalls, content after the long days on the trail. He awoke before dawn and walked to the creek. The water ran cold and clear. He washed his face, filled his canteen, stood listening to the valley wake up. Birds in the trees, wind moving through the grass, a coyote calling from somewhere in the hills. When he got back to the house, smoke rose from the chimney. Olivia had coffee on and bacon frying. She looked up when he came through the door. Thought you might have left already. Thought about it, but you didn't. Not yet. He poured coffee and sat at the table. What needs doing around here? She set a plate in front of him. Fence needs mending on the south pasture. Barn roof's got some weak spots. Garden needs clearing and replanting. Corrals could use work before we bring in stock. She sat across from him. 6 months of work, maybe more. That's if it's 2 people. 1 person alone, it'd take a year. Rip ate the bacon, drank the coffee. Through the window he could see the valley spreading green and wide, hills rising beyond. Good land, the kind that could hold a man if he let it. I'm not much for staying put. I know, and I don't know the first thing about ranching. You'll learn. I did. She refilled his coffee. Or, you can ride out. Take your money. Find another town, another job. Nobody's stopping you. He thought about that. Thought about the last 10 years drifting from place to place, working other men's ranches, other men's problems, never staying long enough to build anything, never finding a reason to. Cole's letter, he said, the one he sent you. He said to keep going, didn't he? Said not to let what happened to James stop you from living. He did. That what you're doing? Living. She was quiet for a moment. I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. But this place, this ranch, it's what James wanted. What we both wanted. I can't let it die just because he did. Rip finished his coffee and stood. He walked to the door and looked out at the valley. The sun was coming up now, turning everything gold. Behind him, Olivia waited. He'd spent years running from things he couldn't name. Years telling himself he preferred being alone, preferred the road. But standing here, looking at this land, feeling the weight of possibility instead of the weight of money or trouble or other men's sins, it felt different. Felt like something worth staying for. He turned back to her. That fence on the south pasture. Show me where it is. She smiled. You sure? No, but I'll stay anyway. See how it goes? Fair enough. She stood and grabbed her hat from the peg. Come on, we've got daylight to burn. They walked out together into the morning. And for the first time and longer than he could remember, Rip Campbell didn't look back at the road behind him.